This lesson is for PSD 302. Our focus skill today is to calculate the average given the number of data values and the sum of the data values. Our extension skill for this skill is to calculate the missing data value. So we're going to be given the average and all the other data values except for one, and we're going to calculate that and find it. In your skill sheets, you are going to be using a review skill from PSD 202. You're going to be reading charts and answering questions based off of the chart. So it says here, the chart below displays the performance scores on an entrance test for 5 candidates who are seeking a manager's position. What is the range of the candidates' scores? In parentheses here, it defines range for you. Range is the difference between the highest and lowest values. Now that's a review skill. We already know that from before, but just to refresh you, we're going to find the range by taking the highest number and the lowest number and subtracting them. So the highest candidate score was James with a 90, and the lowest was Bob's with a 75. So the range of the scores is going to be found by taking 90 minus 75 to give me 15. So this is the value, the scores range is 15. Okay, so for our focus in isolation, we are going to be asking you to find an average if we give you the sum and we give you the total number of items. So let me kind of explain what I mean by that. Before, we might tell you a list of a few numbers, and we might ask you to find the average of that list. Well, you know that you're supposed to add up all the parts and then divide by the total number of items. And then you find what the average is. Well, here, instead of giving you all of the individual parts, we just give you the sum of all of those parts and ask you to divide by the number of items to find your average. So we're only going to give you two numbers here, and you have to know which one is the sum and which one is the total number of items. So let's start with this example. It says for number 2 that the total sales for a company was $2,700,000 for 30 days. What was the average sales per day? So I'm given two totals. One is the total amount of money that they make, and one is the total number of days that they've made this money in. So in this case, I want to find the average by taking the sum, which is this number here, the total amount of money, and I'm going to divide that by the total amount of days, which is very similar to what we do in just a normal average. It's just that now this total has already been given to us. The sum has already been given to us. So we have $2.7 million divided by 30. And so we're going to divide those two numbers. Now I think you could actually do this without using a calculator in your head. Anytime you have a 0 on top and a 0 in the denominator, you can divide those here and just cancel those out. And then we're going to look at the number 27 divided by 3. Well, 27 fits into 3 9 times. And then we're going to just copy this number of zeros afterwards. So that means that the average sales per day was $90,000. So $90,000 average sales per day. And there's the answer for question 2. Okay, now in question 3 it says on average 490,000 babies are born worldwide each day. What is the average number of babies born each hour? So in this case they only give me one number, the 490,000 babies. Now they ask us to figure out how many on average are born each hour. So what we need to do is figure out how many hours are in one day, because this is given information for each day. So that means I know I'm going to take the total number of babies, 490,000, and I'm going to divide it by the total number of items that I'm trying to divide it into, which is 24. This represents the total number of hours. Okay, so we have the total number of babies divided by the total number of hours, and that will give me our average. So this number comes out to be 20,416.666, which I'm going to round to 0.7. Now, we don't want to just leave this as our answer. We want to answer the original question. It says, what's the average number of babies born each hour? So we want to state this kind of in a sentence, and you want to make sure you label your answer and your units. So you have 20,416.7 babies born on average per hour. Okay? Okay, now in problem 4 and 5, I would like you guys to pause the video and try these two problems before I work the solution out for you. And then you're going to check the answer, and you can just play it back and fast forward through it if you kind of want to see the correct answer, and then go back and replay if you didn't get the correct answer. Okay, now in this problem, what you should have done is taken 890,000 because that was the total number of people. Okay, and you would divide that by the total number of days. And that amount of days is 31 because August has 31 days. And you're going to divide those two numbers to get 28,709.67, and this is not repeating, so I'm just going to do this, but again, it's 0.7. So that means that 28,709.7 people attended the museum each day. And somewhere in that sentence I want to stick the fact that that's on average. Okay, so on average 28,709 people attended the museum each day. In number 5, the number of magazines that were sold at the specific Walgreens store was 535. So this is your total. You're going to take 535 and divide that by 7 because each day of the week they're open. And you end up with 76.43. And I'm going to keep that as 76.4. So on average, 76.4 magazines are sold a day. Okay, now our extension skill is a little bit trickier, and we've actually kind of done some of these already. This is where you're finding a missing value when you're given all of your data sets. So we have done some of these questions before, and you're going to see it a lot more and get more practice with this in PSD 302. So it says Sandra scored 65, 70, 80, and a 65 on 4 math quizzes. What must she get on her 5th math quiz to have a quiz average of 74%? So she already has a 65, a 70, an 80, and a 65 again. But she's going to take a 5th quiz, which we don't know its value, so I'm going to call that X. So X is the 5th score on her quiz. Okay? And I'm going to divide that number by the total number of quizzes that she's going to take, which is 5, and set that equal to the average that she wants. She wants a 74% average, so we're going to set that equal to 74. Now remember, when you're trying to isolate this X here, we have to get rid of first this 5 in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply by 5 on both sides because I have to do onto one side of the equation the same thing that I do onto the other. So this is going to cancel out that 5, and 74 times 5 gives me 370. So now I'm just going to copy down the rest of this, 65 plus 70 plus 80 plus 65 plus X, and then I'm going to simplify all of my like terms here. So all of these numbers are like terms, and I can find the sum of all of those numbers. So 280, which is the sum of these numbers here, plus X should equal 370. And now we'll subtract the 280 to the other side to get X equals 90. So this tells you that she needs to get a 90% on her 5th and final quiz in order to pull up her average. If you notice, that might be tough for her because she's not, hasn't gotten anything quite that high yet. So she's going to really have to study in order to get that. So she needs a 90% on her quiz. Okay? Alright, that is the end of this tutorial. Go ahead and get to work and then ask us if you guys have any questions at all. Nice job!